We owe a debt of gratitude to our elected public servants who step up to humbly tackle the most pressing issues in our communities, like pickleball. For real though, it is a big deal in Centennial. City Council met again on it this week. City has a ban on new pickleball courts so they can put rules in place about noise. Our Steve Steger, suburbanite, pickleballer, journalist, man, went to a scientist who knows about such matters.
For a relatively simple game, Centennial's debate about pickleball has been complex.
The thing that I would ask that we also consider are the human sounds.
And a little strange.
That constant grunting. Some people like to make contact with the ball, and every time they do it, they grunt real loud.
Like I said, intense stuff. During its latest meeting on the issue this week, a city planner admitted a ban on human noises is going to be tough to enforce, but the city may look at other ways to regulate the sound of the game itself.
The trouble with the flat face paddle is it vibrates like this about 1,000 times a second, and it has a popping sound. That popping sound is much more annoying than the thunk of a tennis racket.
Bob Unitich is a retired engineer who decided to unretire.
I got into playing pickleball and helping my own community solve our sound problem.
Now he's a consultant who's helped a few different communities.
85.6.
He really gets into this stuff. Even has a lab in Pennsylvania where they test the sound of different paddles.
84.4.
Trying to figure out how to make the equipment quieter. But where you can't enforce the kind of paddles and balls players use, Bob says you've got to address the courts.
I like identifying what is the local sound level of ordinary noise and how difficult would it be to bring down the pickleball sound down to that level.
That may differ depending on where you are. If you're near a road, the normal noise level is louder. In the woods, quieter.
In many cases, putting up some sort of barrier, either reflecting or absorbing or some combination of things, is sufficient to get the sound level down to about the background noise level.
He says you're never going to make everyone happy, but a compromise can be reached. And he says it as a guy who loves the sport and understands the issue.
I think the overall acceptance of the idea that we need to take into account sound is a good thing. We need to all recognize that there is a problem.
And it appears Centennial will try to establish that baseline sound level and create some other rules, like requiring that courts be set back so far from homes or requiring a noise study before allowing some courts close to homes to be built. Their 6-month moratorium runs out on October 1st, and they hope to have a rule or a list of rules in place by then, Kyle.
The baseline thing makes a lot of sense because you would think, a court in the shadow of I-70 is one thing, a court next to a Zen garden is another.
It's funny, Bob was actually talking about some space like where highways meet tends to be a good place to put a pickleball court because you have a lot of unused land where you could build something and then the noise isn't a problem because people are just used to the sound. I live near Arapahoe Road. My neighborhood, you can constantly hear that rush of traffic. So maybe my neighborhood needs a little bit higher sound limit. In other neighborhoods.
But real quickly now, on the grunting, are they doing any research on the grunting?
He said, you got to kind of remember that you're playing it, and if your screams are louder than the hit, then maybe you need to do like check yourself instead. But they're not necessarily studying that.
Yeah, let's bring some people in that little lab of his.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.